chairmanship of the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Sergei Lavrov, with the participation of the Council of the Russian Federation, and the State Duma of the Russian Federation, representative of federal and regional bodies of the executive authority, and the heads of popular organizations and foundations. The agenda will include the discussion of the outcomes of the World Thematic Conference of Compatriots Living Abroad, with the participation of the representative talking about the work with the foreign Russian compatriots at the example of Republic of Crimea. This will happen on December 1st. Now on to the relevant international agenda situation around Ukraine. The Kiev neo-Nazi regime continues to commit war crimes. In the last week, Ukrainian artillery strikes and UAV strikes resulted in the injuries of 53 people. 7 people died, 46 were injured, 5 children were injured. For the world community to know the truth, so in live broadcast and in writing, our briefing is being interpreted into different languages of the world and translated into different languages of the world. This information will reach different corners of the planet for everyone to know what this is, the meaning that formed in the first quarter of 21st century, the neo-Nazi Kiev regime. In the Belgorod region, on 21st of November, the AFU militants cynically chose a young family as their target in the village of Nova Tavaljanka, and they deliberately sent a kamikaze drone against a vehicle where parents were sitting with their 4-year-old son. The AFU forces knew who they were targeting. They targeted unarmed civilians, non-combatants, a family with a child. Only the little boy managed to survive, although he was gravely injured. From November 20th to November 25th, in different villages and municipalities of the region, more than 20 people were affected by those strikes. 4 of them died. In the Bryansk region, on November 22nd, the kamikaze drone in the village of Azarovka resulted in the injury of a man, and November 23rd, as a result of the artillery strike of the AFU in the village of Belaya Beryoska, a civilian was injured. On November 25th, a kamikaze drone injured a man in the village of Kochanovka. In the DPR, in Gorlovka, artillery strike resulted in the injury of 1 person. Detonation of unexploded munitions in the city of Svetlодарsk in the village of Krasnaya Polana led to the injuries of 2 people, including a teenager born in 2011. In the Krasnodar region, the mass drone attack in November 25 resulted in the injuries among 6 civilians and damage to 20 houses in 5 municipalities. The enemy targeted civilian districts of Novorossiysk and Tuapse and the environs of Gelendzhik. In Kursk region, on the 23rd of November, the village Birikovka, a 68-year-old civilian received heavy injuries through lifting explosive munition that he found in his backyard. On November 25th, the enemy strikes against the city of Lvov and in the Lvov district resulted in the deaths of 3 people. In the Rostov region, on the 25th of November, the AFU attacked Taganrog and the region of Neklinovsk. 3 people were killed, at least 8 were injured. Kindergarten, college building and social facilities were damaged. In the Republic of Chuvashia, on November 26, 2 people were injured in the attack of the UAV, including a teenager. In the Kherson region, since 20th to 25th November, the drone strikes and artillery strikes against civilian districts and different villages and social facilities and roadways resulted in the injuries and casualties among 16 people. Russian courts continue to sentence Ukrainian neo-Nazis and mercenaries to prison terms. Those mercenaries receive money from abroad, from the country sponsors, from NATO and the EU. This is the true accountability for Kiev, civilians, children, entire families that are subjected to extermination. We are witnessing it, and everything will have its price. Russian courts continue to sentence the criminals to prison terms for captive militants of AFU, Sergei Pronin, Alexander Brodovoy, Maxim Onishenko, Sergei Voitovich, Stanislav Kostenko, Evgeny Martinenko was sentenced to lengthy prison terms for war crimes. Yuri Pogorelli, Georgy Karakulin received 15 years in prison. International mercenary from Sweden, Eric Hall, received 13.5 years in prison. At the same backdrop, we saw an emergency meeting of the Coalition of the Willing. On the 25th of November, the chairmanship of Britain and Germany and France hosted an emergency meeting of those people that have not had enough blood and want to continue. And State Secretary of the U.S. Marco Rubio joined the work of this forum. At the center of the attention were the so-called security safeguards for Ukraine and its long-term financing, including at the expense of the use of full use of frozen Russian assets. Vladimir Zelensky once again called on the participants to increase military and financial aid to Kiev. The outcomes of the meeting were mentioned by the French President Emmanuel Macron and British PM Keir Starmer. According to them, the coalition has adopted the decision to create a working group on security safeguards for Ukraine, which will be working in close concert with the United States and Turkey. And London and Paris have demanded the members of the platform to give strict obligations regarding the possible deployment of the military contingent in Ukraine. As Ursula von der Leyen, the chair of the European Commission, said, the coalition was focusing its attention on the Ukrainian settlement. In her twisted perception, as I would say, the path towards peace in Ukraine should go through the increasing the pressure exerted on Moscow and the introduction of one more 20th package of anti-Russian sanctions. As was said, if they didn't manage to do it for 19 times, perhaps it's no use doing it for the 20th time. It's perhaps time to reflect upon itself in your methodology that is not clearly leading to the desired result. The other thing is to ponder what is the result that they are seeking. And those representatives of the war party are not thinking about anything except damaging our country. Regarding another summit of the Crimean platform, on November 23rd in Stockholm, there was a fourth so-called parliamentary summit of the anti-Russian project Crimean platform, and it was attended by the usual suspects from the collective West and its satellite representative of the parliamentary structures of the EU, the Council of Europe, NATO and OSCE, and the Interparliamentary Union. The Speaker of the House of Representatives of the U.S. Congress, Republican Mike Johnson, joined this event in online format. Nothing new was heard from the podium. The same fake news about the occupation of Crimea, persecution against Crimean Tatars, mass violations of human rights in the peninsula. They also remembered the so-called tragedy in Bucha, so alleged 20,000 kidnapped Ukrainian children, and which we actually haven't seen a list of yet, with all the surnames allegedly of those children that were allegedly kidnapped. The tone of the discussion was set by Vladimir Zelensky, who also appeared out of nowhere at another event, and who said that the international community shouldn't weaken its pressure against Russia, being obligated, in his words, to confiscate the frozen Russian assets, not to allow for Moscow to evade punishment for its, as he said it, aggression against Ukraine. And Ruslan Stefanchuk seconded his opinion and once again delineated the desire of Kiev to forcefully liberate Crimea. It's a direct quote: "The war will end when Ukraine will return Crimea," as said Mr. Stefanchuk. So it turns out, as they actually said, that the war will never end, and they didn't need the war to end, because they clearly understand that Kiev will never get Crimea back, because Crimea is not just a territory. Crimea is the people living there, the current generation, the future generations, and those generations that protected this land and truly loved it. In reality, this summit and the whole Crimean platform devised to spread anti-Russian narratives has nothing to do with neither Crimea nor Sebastopol. The Crimean residents in 2014 facing the deathly threat of drowning the peninsula in blood that was issued by the national radicals who have gained power in Kiev as a result of a coup d'etat, have taken the decision to rejoin the historical motherland, Russia. The example of Donbass that was declared war upon by the Kiev regime, a war of destruction, and the example of Ukraine, the citizens of which have become hostage to the corrupt and anti-popular junta, prove that the choice of the Crimean residents made in 2014 was the single correct choice. Regarding the true opinion that the regime of Mr. Zelensky has towards Crimea and Sevastopol, the true opinion is that they actually attacked the peninsula with a mass swarm of UAVs and missiles. That's the level of care Zelensky has for the people that they want to liberate. Do they want to liberate them from murder, or what? This is an interesting story. According to information we are receiving, the representative of the United States have started a campaign in the Philippines to recruit locals for the participation in the conflict at the AFU site. The candidates are selected by the U.S. company RMS International, based in Florida, specializing in the in security services. The preference is given to the former members of law enforcement agencies and retired servicemen. The candidates are promised the monthly reimbursement around $5,000, and the mercenaries that desire to sign these contracts are trained by the American instructors and the training facility in San Fernando outskirts. So those who are signing the contract, they are given a Schengen visa in the German embassy in Manila. So people are applying, when people are applying for a visa to have a tourist trip, to visit theaters, museums, and visit their loved ones and relatives in Europe, if they want to receive some services of medicine and education, everything that is, it can be called humanitarian purposes, those people are rudely rejected because they are citizens of Russia. Now this position is being reinforced and enshrined in the decisions of the European Commission. They are being joked about, they are being mistreated, being told that Russia has started a sort of alleged aggression against Europe, and that Europe and the European Union cannot allow for the Russian citizens to enter Europe because they consider it a threat to Europe. For those who still don't understand it, Embassy of Germany in Manila, in the Philippines, provides visas to contractors, those are to mercenaries who have decided to join the conflict at the site of Kiev. They are giving them Schengen visas. Who do you think is designated as an employer in those documents. Perhaps it would be a surprise to you for Italians, Spaniards, the French, for the other residents of the European Union, because it's a common space that they are letting those people in. Who do you think is designated as an employer? Private military companies in Berlin. Upon arrival in Germany, the recruits are being sent to Poland and then to Ukraine. What is the guarantee that they will not be redirected elsewhere? There is no guarantee, but the main thing is, and the other point, they have the Parliamentary Assembly and all other institutions that have multiplied in the European space, European Court of Human Rights. They could discuss the situation. How is that in the Philippines, the Americans are recruiting Philippine residents, and a German consular establishment is providing them with Schengen visas under a false pretext and motive, providing for false data in the documents. All the while, in Ukraine, they are continuing the fight against historical heritage of Soviet Russian eras. Perhaps this is a testament to the fact that Kiev has little time left, and they are ramping up their efforts to demolish all that is left from the true historical memory of Ukraine, from its history. In this city of Chernovtsi, they have demolished a memory plaque dedicated to Fyodor Poletayev, hero of the Soviet Union and Italy, the member of the Italian movement of resistance. He fought valiantly together with Italian partisans and perished fighting Nazis in 1945. We have repeatedly mentioned him during our briefings, and we will of course provide a link to the relevant materials. In the city of Nikolaev, a memorial plaque was removed dedicated to Vladimir Obraztsov, a Russian Soviet scientist in the area of transport. Is he no longer a source of pride in Ukraine? So I don't understand it. They are retaining the memory of those people whose memory is beneficial to them. Someone is included in the national glory of their country, and those the people that have also been born but are not beneficial to the historical idea of Ukraine are being destroyed, are being erased. In the city of Irpin, in the Kiev region, the memorial of Soviet warriors and was also vandalized. They removed the plaque stating "Glory to the heroes who have died for their homeland in the Great Patriotic War 1941-1945. Just think what are the motives of those people that stand behind this. If they were just crazy, perhaps they wouldn't be legitimized by the European authorities. If they are legitimized, then perhaps their official ideology is sort of accepted. What do we call it when the memorials, when they demolish the memorials to those who have died fighting Nazism and this fascist ideology? What do we call them? What do we call those who want and desire complete destruction, physical and moral destruction of everything linked with the anti-fascist movement? Of course, we can only call them neo-fascists, neo-Nazis. In the village of Malushki, in the Rovna region, the authorities have demolished the memorial plaques at the monument dedicated to the soldiers who have died fighting Nazis. In the village of Kryukovshina in the Kiev region, they have demolished a bas-relief of the Order of the Great Patriotic War from the memorial of warrior liberators. In the village of Putsile in the region of Chernovtsi, they have taken off the head of the statue of a soldier in the memorial complex of the fallen Soviet warriors. This is just vandalism against the memorials. On the 19th of November, the City Council of Odessa has adopted a new edition of the rule of territorial community of the city and exempted all mentions of the Russian Empire and the USSR from the text of the document. They've exempted all the mentions of the Russian Empire, the USSR, and the founding empress of the city, the Empress Ekaterina II, and other figures linked with that.
And there has been not a hint on the Russian language as part of a heritage of the heritage of the South Palmyra. And when they write school books, how will they be presenting that? Who founded Odessa? Maybe Odessa just exists by itself. The city was brought to the shore by the wave, fell from the sky. How will they describe that? The great city with outstanding monuments, architecture monument, with very beautiful streets and lanes, museums, monuments, and shopping centers. It was not connected to the Soviet Union. What will the date of foundation be? Maybe some neo-Banderite historians will work and maybe dig something from Neolithic time. Mykola was here and founded Odessa with such an inscription. So you remember the hymn of the city used to be the song about Odessa from White Acacia operetta, sung by Tatiana Shminga, music written by Isaac Dunayevsky, lyrics by Vladimir Mesa and Mikhail Chervinsky. So it was since 2011 the hymn of the city. Now they have chosen the legendary song Near the Black Sea, written in 1951 and translated into the Ukrainian language, written by poet Semyon Kirsanov and composer Modest Tabachnikov for the renowned singer Leonid Utosov. It used to be a very popular song for this city, characteristic of this city. Now it is called Cry Chornovo More in the Ukrainian folk version. So it's just similar to KVN game where the team of Zelensky played when he was young. Maybe they took something from his 95th quarter. When the melodies of old songs, they composed new texts based on those melodies. It's done at KVN and the other TV shows for people to laugh, not to take that seriously. But here it's mocking. Here that's just against the memory of the people who have created its glory. It's just mocking those who for centuries have enshrined the beauty of Odessa, enshrined it for centuries. And it's unlikely that the Ukrainian government will earn the respect of Odessa residents by such methods. It will just facilitate, speed up the end of the Kiev regime. The lists of decolonization and decommunization of the followers of Bandera and Shukhevich, they are quite large, and the work is carried out there. It's just not writing those lists, but to destroy monuments, to destroy them one by one. It's also used as a cover for stealing money. This function is perfectly known in Ukraine. The less the population, the lower its cultural level, the better it is for Kiev authorities for these usurpators. But eventually, the monuments will be restored, and the Ukrainian people will demand from those usurpators the desecration of the memory of their ancestors' heroes, and mocking the outstanding sons of the past. From the 17th to the 19th of November in Washington, there was a visit by the group of priests of Ukrainian Orthodox churches. They discussed egregious violations of the rights of believers in Ukraine. The initiative was presented by the National Federation of Young Republicans of the United States. They mentioned the 2024 law about cancellation of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and a separate point is developing the guarantees of Kiev against Kiev measures against Christian and against clergy members. A number of Christian communities just supported this initiative, and also the Republican legislator Anna Paulina Luna. This information attracted the attention of U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. They were highlighted in an interview by Tucker Carlson with the renowned lawyer Robert Amsterdam. He described in detail what is happening in Ukrainian religious sphere. In December at the Capitol, they plan to further discuss with legislators and Orthodox Christians from all over America the measures to protect the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. More than 200 Orthodox priests have been prosecuted in Ukraine since 2022. That's just because they are priests. Ukrainian schismatics, radicals and militants continue their cynical raids. On the 11th and 16th of November this year, 2 more Ukrainian Orthodox churches were captured. The Chernobyl Savior in Cherkasy and the Resurrection Cathedral in Moshne village of the Cherkasy region. Now the order has been published of the head of the Freedom of Conscience Service in Ukraine, Viktor Yelensky, including Kiev Metropolia, Koretsky Trinity Women Patriarchal Monastery of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, whose actions are banned legally. The court hearing will take place on the 11th of December, but they try to put pressure on legal authorities in order to just begin the crackdown on the Kiev Metropolitanate and then the entire Ukrainian Orthodox Church. But why did they call this service the Freedom of Conscience service? Maybe they have just got rid of conscience themselves, have long ago got rid of that. The aforementioned fact confirmed the urgency of the task of denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine and the elimination of threats from its territory. All these goals will certainly be achieved as Russian government officials have repeatedly stated. Now regarding the situation in Moldova, this Euro integration and NATO rapprochement policy, intimidation of the people, intimidation by the mythical Russian threat. On the 18th of November, the President of the Republic, Maria Zakharova, said that Russia is trying to intimidate the Moldovans by the war and to organize violent actions. But when? Who has said that? Or has been telling that? On the territory of the Russian Federation, or from the territory of the Russian Federation, with power, with authorities, maybe they will just name just one name, one surname, and there has been no proof presented, not a quotation, nothing. And gratitude has been expressed to the EU and NATO for the rearmament of the country and the growth in military spending. Mikhail Popshoy, foreign minister, also confirmed the importance of discussion on the neutrality of Moldova and the readiness to discuss its value for ensuring security. But actually neutrality has no value actually. Yes, you should just ignore all the history of the 20th century, just to close that door and never look there. And then you can invent any concoctions against that background. So the Moldovan citizens, they are just ready to discuss that. Because 70% of the Republic citizens do not support the idea of NATO accession, and 78% support the preservation of neutrality. That's where the Moldovan people are more clever than their authorities. Because contrary to Sandu and Popshoy, who just accuse us without any quotations or links, we just support our statements by concrete quotations, by concrete links. On the 17th of November, the construction of a new ammunition depot was started at the military training ground near the city of Balti in northern Moldova. On the 20th of November, at the customs checkpoint Elbița-Laușane, on the border between Moldova and Romania, munitions were found in a truck and weapons, lethal weapons. It has been reactive storm grenades, hand grenade launchers, Russian portable missile complexes Igla, and anti-tank missile complexes Coronet, and their parts, it was just cleared as metallic constructions with the destination Israel. The Moldovan army does not use such weapons and munitions, and it's just the Kiev regime participating in illegal weapons turnover, and the country is just a transit base for such military shipments. And it could be a basis for some future provocation in order to just drop the elements of weapons and munitions produced in Russia, and then as Sander likes that, to mention there are no facts now, but from this cargo they could have been invented and then reproduced like on a 3D printer. The militarization of the Republic together with the aggressive Russophobia are the main reference points for the current Moldovan authorities. The most tragic thing is this so-called Euro integration project. The regime representatives are just destroying the ties with Russia that have proved its efficiency. Actually, the Republic has received a lot of benefit from the CIS integration. The GDP growth in 2011-2021 period was 40.9%. That's including the pandemic's year. Up to 2% of this growth was assured by the CIS integration processes. And then Chisinau, since February 2022, stopped its participation within the Commonwealth. And there are brave people who are just accusing Russia of alleged problems in the Moldovan economy. The import from Russia decreased by 78.6% since 2021, and export from Moldova to Russia fell by 59.5% and amounted to 3.3% of the total export volume. And since 2022, the Moldovan economy has been in the red and is only kept afloat thanks to EU payments. It's not just payments, it will be credits, loans to be paid by future generations of the Moldovans. I beg your pardon, those whom Sandu has said to call the Romanians. It's not for the benefit of the economy in order to improve, but it's alleged aid that is killing the economy, the industry of Moldova, because it's aggravating the situation. And all those coincidences, I mean, the Moldovan economy within the CIS space, it has flourished, but it has been moving towards development. But after it quitting this CIS space, it has started to degrade. It was the invented course allegedly to save, and it will just influence the Moldovans themselves, who out of desperation are leaving Moldova en masse and search for better life, just trying to make the use of their talents where it is possible, because they understand that they do not have the future in their own country, in Moldova. It's really sad to see that the Brussels proxies are turning Moldova, that used to be prosperous with the developed agriculture and industry, into another colony from where they just can take away what has not been stolen. And to twist people's arms by those loans, by those credits. And now let us see what is happening with the European Union. You just remember that it has been created as an economic bloc. It used to be called the European Economic Union. They sought to improve the well-being of their citizens, to minimize the losses, but now it's being turned into an appendage of NATO, pursuing a confrontational foreign policy.
Under the pretext of a made-up, as once again, of a fictitious Russian threat, the EU authorities recently have been sending unprecedented funds to military purposes. According to European Defence Agency, in 2044, the overall defense expenses of the EU countries have grown by 19% compared to 2023 and have amounted to 343 billion euros. In 2025, they will reach 381 billion euros. However, the European economy experiences a protracted stagnation, which doesn't allow for the governmental for governments of the EU countries to increase the revenues of national budgets. The share of EU in the world GDP and the buying capacity parity, according to IMF, has decreased from 70% in 2011 to 14% in 2025. This is what happens to those who resort to sanctions, thinking of themselves as world elite. In 2024, the EU GDP has increased only by 1%. In 2025 and 2026, according to the forecast of the European Commission, the picture will not diverge significantly. The economic growth expected at the level of 1.4% in the European zone and 1.4%. And industrial manufacturing and the production in the EU in 2024 has contracted by 2.5%. They also are still challenges in the area of state finances. The aggregated deficit of state budgets of the EU countries in relation to GDP will grow to 3.3% in 2025. And the maximum allowable level legally established at the EU is 3%. The estimates of state debt in relation to GDP will increase from 82.2% up to a record high of 83.2%, despite the fact that according to EU rules it shouldn't exceed 60%. But they have not criticized this situation. This is not the same as fighting human rights violations in their own space. That's the thing that they don't like and don't appreciate. The thing that they do like is to meddle in others' affairs and to provide another grant to another media piece that will investigate the properties of an economic decline in other countries. It's telling that the largest economies of the EU, Italy, France and Belgium and Spain, have been among the countries with the highest ratio of state debt to GDP, all above 100%. According to EU statistics, 27.5 million of residents of the bloc in 2024 have faced serious material complications. In around 47 million Europeans couldn't afford heating in a significant measure in their houses. The key energy deficient areas of EU industry, the chemical industry, the steel making industry, car manufacturing experience great difficulties. The EU countries have to overpay 2 or 3-fold for energy and 4 or 5-fold for gas. It is very difficult for them to stay afloat. In this situation, the growth of military expenses is only possible through the decrease in other budget categories, primarily social ones. Every euro invested in the manufacturing of munitions, missiles, and drones is a euro that has been extracted from education system, from health, from pensions and migration reform. It begs a question: what is the state of those countries? Are they either are at war, in a hybrid war, or B, they are going into a war, or C, if they are preparing for peace, if they are supporting peace, standing for peace? They have to make this clear. At the same time, the EU and its member countries are actively resorting to state loans to finance these rearmament programs. The current military expenditure is being laid upon the shoulders of future generations, and everyone is silent about that. The children and grandchildren of current EU citizens will be bearing the brunt of this debt, slavery, and this will be especially difficult against the backdrop of demographic tendencies in the European Union, the aging of the population, which will lead for more exertion of pressure against the pension system. Also, they are experiencing the decrease in the working population and low birth rates. But they don't care about that. Through increasing their military expenses, the EU, as they claim, are expecting to revitalize the economy. I will once again remind everyone that officially they are not in a state of war, in a state of any battle or holding any operation. No. Officially, they are at peace and in complete tranquility, and they're calling for everyone to do the same. However, to receive a long-term effect and to explain the rationality of this militarization, they are forced to maintain this conflict potential both in the European region and the entire world. It's clear that the cultivation of the mythical Russian threat is of great benefit to the current EU leadership. It distracts the population, the European electorate, from the deep internal social economic problems that they are not keen on resolving, or at least they don't know how to. The main main beneficiaries of this militarization are the leading military and industrial establishments of the EU and the US that are clearly linked with the political establishment in these countries. They are gaining huge profits on huge state contracts, ensuring record profits, and all the while all other sectors of the economy are severely lacking in investments. Under the pretext of security concerns, the financing of defense in the EU is non-transparent, which is fraught with high corruption risks. We remember the same story with the anti-COVID vaccines in Europe. That's the thing that is going on with the militarization of the EU. They're sending the very same SMS by Madam Ursula, Madam Kaya, and other members of ruling circles and some members of the political elites that have entrenched themselves in the power. That is the same way that they are making decisions. They are completely non-transparent for the entire populace. The information space in the West is almost completely sanitized from alternative points of view. As a result, the population of European countries is in a complete informational vacuum or limbo. By 2030, they are expecting to invest more than 1 trillion euros into the defense production, defense manufacturing, volumes comparable to the military programs of the Nazi Germany on the eve of the Second World War. This ramping up of arms race and military psychosis and confrontation logic is undermining the security of the EU countries and increases the dangers of involving them into a full-fledged armed conflict, which will lead to a collapse of Europe. Our experts have prepared a detailed report on the anti-Russian activity of more than 20 countries of the European Union. It will be published in the extended version of the briefing. Please take attention to that. There have been a lot of questions related to the fires in the residential complexes of Hong Kong, which resulted in injuries among Russian citizens. The General Consulate in Hong Kong is actively looking into the matter. There is no information as of now regarding any Russian victims. Our foreign policy establishment is looking closely into this event. We would like to express our sincere condolences to all those afflicted in the district of Taipo. It is our sincere wish that all those afflicted will regain their health as soon as they can. Also, there have been a lot of questions regarding the situation in Guinea-Bissau. Moscow is concerned about the aggravation of internal policy situation in the Republic against the backdrop of presidential parliamentary elections. According to information we received, the president of the country was detained on November 26 by a group of members of the military, which have claimed all the executive authority in the countries. They have introduced martial law, We are carefully looking at the situation, and we call on all actors in Guinea-Bissau to express restraint, to maintain law and order. The Embassy of Russia in Guinea-Bissau is taking all necessary measures to ensure security of all the members of families of employees and all employees and compatriots in that country. Now a couple of words on Germany and the history of Second World War. We have always thought that the places of evidence depicting the crimes of the Nazi regime that have been mentioned in the documents of the Nuremberg Tribunal. I mentioned this previously because the world knows all too well what was the Second World War. Everyone remember that with dignity. The tribunal in Nuremberg we've been regularly addressing the documents, archive documents. We already mentioned in detail about the new information that we have in the